Kristy Bird Trouchon from the class of 1990, whose favorite spot when she thinks back on campus was looking out the window at the new falling snow over Broadway from the then brand new Sulzberger Tower.
I lay on the floor of my 110th Street apartment. It was my second year at Barnard, and I had absolutely no hope. I was heartbroken, and I could just lie there and stare at the ceiling. That's all I could do. And I loved Barnard. How did I get there? My journey to Barnard started with my parents. My father has a PhD from UC Berkeley. He's a biophysicist, and my mother didn't finish college. She raised us 3 kids and just kind of did odd jobs to make ends meet. As you can imagine, a researcher doesn't make all that much money, and so she always had to supplement what we had. My dad is a very kind and thoughtful man. He always had a twinkle in his eye and ready with a pun that was kind of corny, but we loved it anyway. And my mom was kind of a force of nature. She just steamrolled through life and made things happen. When I was 9, she started her own business. It's a little strange. It's called Russian punch needle embroidery. And she has done that ever since. She was able to live within our means. I think that she kind of coined that phrase, maybe. And she could make a chicken last for 5 meals for the 5 of us. That was pretty impressive. And we just didn't have a lot of money. It just wasn't part of our life. So we just learned to make the ends meet and make our own clothes and be creative about it. My dad ended up doing research for Columbia. So we grew up on Long Island. And I ended up working for my mom, starting at the age of 15, selling the punch needle embroidery on push carts in Faneuil Hall in Boston, and then in South Street Seaport here in New York City. And so it was a lot of hard work, and if you were sad, work harder, and if you didn't have enough money, get another job. It was just a very different life, and they wanted us to be completely independent at age 18. So, if we wanted to go to college, we'd have to get our own financing for that. Whatever we needed to do in our life, we would be on our own at age 18. So not unusual, but it was kind of unusual for the rest of the families that I knew. I had friends whose parents took out a second mortgage to send them to college, and I thought, wow, that's cool. I don't get that. So the caveat was that my dad worked for Columbia, so we would have free tuition if we could get in to Barnard or Columbia. And my sister graduated in '85. My brother didn't get into Columbia. He ended up on a 7-year plan at Cortland State. But we were over the age of 18, we could lead our own life, and he did his own thing. So when I got into Barnard, I was a little shocked. I didn't think my grades were all that great. But I was excited. I thought, I have the golden ticket. I get free tuition. It's going to be expensive to live in New York City, but my sister did it. I can do it. So I started at Barnard. My first year, I wasn't quite settled in. It took me about a year to really fall in love with Barnard, and I was wrapping up my English degree or major requirements and falling in love with art history when I landed at the 110th Street apartment my second year. And that was really an amazing experience. My friends became sort of like my family. For all of the work hard mentality that my family had, my friends had the rest of that, the camaraderie and helping each other. I remember some really funny moments, like when a mouse ran across the floor and all 6 of us jumped on the table in the dining room as if the mouse was more scary than maybe the table collapsing under the weight of us. I don't know. My friend Courtney liked to tease me for eating brontosaurus legs. I had a knack for eating under $5 every day. And you could get 2 turkey legs, like really long with a big chunk of meat. And, pasta and some frozen vegetables. And I had 2 meals for under $3. It was a thing. And so Courtney would always look in the fridge and see the turkey legs and call them brontosaurus legs. She reminded me of that last night. It's gonna stay with me, I think. So we had a really great time. Susan Lane was my roommate, and she just was the bestest friend on the planet. We would get up early and go for walks. So everybody else would sleep in, and our apartment mate Ellen would have to get up early for class and just be grumpy as heck with a big mug of coffee and call us chumps while we were all ready to go for our walks down Broadway and Riverside. But they were like the best therapy you could ever imagine. And as I grew older, over the decades, I kind of wished she lived nearby so that we could continue those walks. And so really, second year, great time. And I was so happy to be at Barnard. I loved it here. And then my dad lost his job. It was really tough on the family. Dad was the guy looking at the petri dishes with, what did radiation do to cells? That was his research. And it devastated the family. And it took me a little minute to realize, what's this mean about my last 2 years at Barnard? I mean, what am I gonna do? It took me another minute. I made an appointment to see the financial aid officer, and came in with some hope, maybe a scholarship, maybe some funding. And the financial aid officer was not so hopeful. She really laid it out. Your grades aren't that great. And I was like, I know, but I'm working hard. I don't, it's hard work harder. And then it was really odd though. She kept saying, well, can't your dad get another job? No, he's really kind of depressed right now. And well, can't your family take out a second mortgage? I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm over 18. I am on my own. I am alone in this. And it was after that conversation that I cried myself back to the 110th Street apartment and lay on the floor. I really had no hope that I would be able to stay at Barnard. A student loan wasn't in my options, just wasn't what we could do. And I waited for my apartment mates to come home and tell them my story, and they talked me off the floor. They talked about tomorrow, the next day, what's it gonna be? You have to get your bachelor's degree. If it's not at Barnard, that's bad, but we'll figure something out. Apply to Binghamton, because I'd gotten in there before, and they accepted me immediately and just kept me going. Just kept that tiny bit of hope that my future wasn't going to be over if I couldn't continue at Barnard. They said they'd put in a good word for me. The Board of Trustees would have to vote on this, and maybe something good would happen. So a couple months went by, and I was applying for the dorms at Binghamton. I had no interest in going to Binghamton. No, it's great school. I just didn't want to go there. I was applying for the dorms, and a letter came from the Barnard Board of Trustees that gave me a 2-year grant. It was the golden ticket. And I immediately called Susan and told her the good news and was back in action in the fall. And I was able to graduate with an English and art history major combined thesis. I don't know anybody who does that, but I did it. And I graduated. So I think back on that time, and I would really like to start a scholarship as a way to help another young woman who's just not able to make it work financially at Barnard, despite working really hard and working her butt off to get in the first place, which is hard enough. It's harder now, isn't it? So I really want to do that, and I want to thank my family and friends for the support that they gave me during that really rough time, and thank Barnard.